All the way back at the beginning of the Minimum Battles series on this channel, I made a statement that I think Wrap is the single most nerfed move in the entire game of Generation 2 when compared to Gen 1. A statement that I think we pretty much could all agree on. Consider, Wrap was a completely broken strategy as long as it hit in Gen 1, preventing your opponent from moving and dealing chip damage to them until you could finally knock them out, whereas in Gen 2, it's basically just a little bit of chip damage while you remain completely susceptible to your opponent attacking you. There's really no debate. Wrap was the single most nerfed move between the two generations, and it really opens the question, could you beat the game with only Wrap and other similar moves? Well, after doing a little bit of research, I found that Dragonite is the one Pokemon available in these generations that, at least at some point in the franchise, has had access to 4 wrapping moves. It started off with Wrap in Gen 1, where it completely devastated Gen 1 competitive for a while, and then in Gen 2, it adds Whirlpool, available via HM. But if you also include later gens of the games, starting in Pokemon Black and White 2, Dragonite could learn the move Bind via Move Tutor. And if you go all the way to the newest generations of the game, talking about Scarlet Violet and Sword and Shield, it can also get access to the move Fire Spin. So if we suspend disbelief just a little bit, because obviously you can't transfer those moves back to a Gen 2 cartridge, and simply allow this Dragonite to have 4 wrapping moves, is it possible to actually beat the entire game if we only use those moves and nothing else? Well, today I'm going to get into it and find out. So as we walk over to Professor Elm's lab, we're going to get access to the single, possibly worst Dragonite in the history of Pokemon. At least it's definitely the most obsessed with Wrap. The first question is, which rival do we want to go up against? I think the best decision is going to be to go up against the rival that has the Totodile. Because with Fire Spin, technically we would have a super effective move against the Bayleaf. That's not really what we want to see. And same with Whirlpool against the Cyndaquil line. So I think Totodile is the only one that gives us no super effective moves with our set, basically allowing us to see this kind of in the most neutral case. So with that, we have the epic Wrap Dragon coming in already, knowing Wrap, Bind, Fire Spin, and Whirlpool. Now, I do not expect this run to be anything close to minimum battles, so we're just going to take battles pretty liberally anytime that we run into a fight that we can't win. And we know how bad it is to grind levels in Gen 2 because all of the opponents are at such low levels outside of basically boss fights. So this could take an absolutely insane amount of time. I honestly just don't know if we're going to be able to get through or not, and what kinds of situations we're going to run into. With that being said, this whole run is inspired by a run that I just did on RBY Pokemon challenges with a very similar concept, a Pokemon running 4 wrapping moves. But the difference is that in Gen 1, Wrap incapacitates your opponent, so as long as it's on a fast Pokemon, in theory, you can just completely destroy the game. It got me thinking though that Gen 2 is so incredibly different with these moves that they might have gone from moves that basically guarantee a Pokemon could solo the game without really any difficulties to moves that make it completely impossible to beat Red at the end of the game. We're just gonna have to see how it actually works out, but first things first, we've got to fight against our rival. Let's just see how the first battle goes with our Wrapper. So of course, we're just going to use Wrap. We need to use a neutral move, and of course it is now wrapped. The first question that I have is, can we put multiple wrapping moves on the opponent? And here we miss Bind, now we hit Bind, but it appears that it's still only being affected by Wrap in between. So we can only have one wrapping move on an opponent at a time that's dealing chip damage, and otherwise we're dealing damage based on our attack stat here against this opponent with an incredibly weak move. Still, that's good to know. So we don't get a stack chip damage on an opponent, we have to only use the wrapping move against one of them. Now obviously our rival is going to be even worse wrapper than us, so our Wrap Dragon is going up against Drake. Sorry, I find that stupid and hilarious. Anyway, let's go ahead and get access to some Pokeballs. We're going to catch other Pokemon, of course, for HMs because we're going to need them to progress in the game. But let's just see how hard or not hard this turns out to actually be. So one thing that I can predict, I think pretty comfortably, is that we will never one-hit KO anything in this entire run. Every single fight is going to be a matter of grinding opponents down, but still, there are plenty of weak opponents early in the game, so I don't expect us to actually have any troubles here. And then the other factor, of course, is about accuracy. Wrap is the most accurate of our moves, and when all of our moves are neutrally effective, they all have the same base power. So in any situation where we have no preference between our moves, we may as well just use Wrap. It also uses our better attack stat, so this is just the clear strategy. However, as we move through the run, we will have situations where one of these other moves is super effective, and then we'll have to use it. Now, with that being said, we just lost to youngster Mikey. So clearly, we're going to have to do a little bit better than this. I'm going to have to refight the rival because of that. And this might just be way harder than I expected. Now, I will be using Speed Up pretty liberally in this one just because I don't want this to take a small eternity. So we'll look at the game time at the end, not the real time, because I honestly don't want to be here recording this for the next like 30 years. We may come back in the future if we prove that it is possible to see how fast you can do it, maybe with some more optimized strategies, but for now, let's just go ahead and see if we can move on in the game. So back again to youngster Mikey, we should actually comment on this fight. The Pidgey is only level 2, so this isn't really the Pokemon we're too worried about, but it does take multiple hits from Wrap to get that Pokemon down. Out comes the Rattata. We, of course, go for Wrap, and we're just slowly chipping this Pokemon down. Clearly, we just took too many Tail Whips last time and then got tackled down. This time, we do manage to win and get to level 6. Still, the fact that we did lose the first time there makes me pretty nervous going into Falkner's gym. I highly doubt that we're going to beat Honest Abe. I'm still going to test it one time. My basic strategy is this. I'm going to fight the required battles, and when I find a required battle that I can't beat, I'm going to go and start level grinding. And like I said, I'm going to be pretty liberal about it. I will only stay in reset on a trainer if I have a clear reason to believe that we got really bad luck and that somehow we could actually get through without that terrible luck happening. Consider like hitting ourselves 5 turns in a row from confusion or being asleep for 7 turns or something like that. So here against Honest Abe, I have put on the berry, but we're going to reset if we fail this because I want to keep the berries. I think they're going to be super important. And here we can see Peck with a critical hit at least did 10 damage, and our Wrap, even after the Wrap effect afterwards, did 4 damage to this Pokemon. So we're really not going to be doing too much here. We heal with the berry. Peck is still doing massive damage. We've barely gotten this Spearow down to half health, and it's pretty clear that we're simply going to lose this first attempt. So with that being in the books, let's go ahead and make our way instead to the Sprout Tower, where we're going to greatly resist the grass type moves. We should be able to make our way up to the top of the tower, I think, without too much difficulty and gain a couple levels. This is also our first chance to use Fire Spin since it's super effective, and the chip damage does basically nothing, but 2 Fire Spins is enough to knock out these Bellsprouts here, and that's basically what we're banking on. So here we have made it to the Elder at the end. We can watch our rival just run away because he's like, hey, he's weak. Well, here we're about to use super weak moves. Let's see if we can manage to win this fight. And basically, I think the best strategy is just to go for the Fire Spins here on the Bellsprouts. I've found that it's certainly the stronger move against them, and we can pretty easily knock them out with Vine Whip doing basically nothing. We get to level 10 as the Hoot Hoot comes out, and for this Pokemon, I'm going Wrap because it has lower defense than special defense. This seems to do significantly more damage. It ends up taking about 4 hits from Wrap to knock this Pokemon out. The chip damage really doesn't seem to be doing much for us here, but hey, we can just slowly knock these Pokemon out, so I guess that's fine. And in the end, we do beat the Elder on the first attempt here at level 10. We've just completely cleared out this entire section of the game. We're gonna need Flash anyway later on, so I think this is perfectly fine. So now let's just make our way back to Falkner's gym and see if we can manage to beat Honest Abe and his 1 Spearow. Still think we're going to need a berry here, but hopefully we can get the luck to get it to go. So Honest Abe attempt number 2, and we're just going wrap the whole way here. Heck, fortunately now isn't doing that much damage now that we've actually gotten to a higher level than Spearow, and we're basically really relying on the fact that we have such a high attack stat to simply knock that Pokemon out with wrap. So with that, let's just see if Rod is okay, and if he is, we'll make our way straight to Falkner. And sure enough, we make it to Falkner himself, so it's time to get into this fight and see if we can get our first gym badge. Definitely over leveled with our Dragonite, but who knows, maybe this is going to be perfectly fine to get through, or maybe Pidgeotto is going to completely destroy us. I honestly do not know. So first up on the Pidgey, of course, it has lower special defense than defense, so I think this is a decent spot to go for like Fire Spin instead. And fortunately, we're a flying type, so we don't have to worry about any Mud Slap action here, and that's going to enable us to take that Pokemon down nice and easy. Now we've got the Pidgeotto, and yet again, it has lower special defense than defense. The issue is just that we also have a significantly higher attack stat than special attack stat, so it might be a situation where Wrap does more damage. Let's just see. Wrap does 5 damage there and then gets the little bit of chip damage. Let's see what Fire Spin does. It's about the same. So really we can go either way. I'm going to stick with Wrap since it is dealing damage based on our attack stat and is more accurate. And sure enough, we can get through just fine there with the berry. So level 12 is what it took to beat Falkner, but we get our first gym badge as well as a badge boost in attack. So that's going to make us a little more biased towards using Wrap and Bind as opposed to Fire Spin and Whirlpool at this point, but we'll just use whichever move we think is the best against a given opponent. And with that out of the way, I'm actually fairly confident going into Bugsy because of the fact that we have Fire Spin that is super effective in that fight. It's not like his 2 lesser bugs, the Metapod and Kakuna, are really all that scary for us. So all we really have to worry about is Scyther building up that Fury Cutter. Being a flying type and resisting the move is probably going to help us there, as well as being able to throw a berry on in order to hopefully be able to survive 1 additional hit while we try to slowly whittle him down with our Fire Spin. But so far, the biggest surprising thing to me is that the chip damage really seems to be playing only a very small part in these battles. Mostly what we're getting from the wrapping moves is the direct attack itself. And on a Pokemon like Dragonite that has really good stats, it's actually not looking that bad here in the early game. I expect it to get worse and worse as we go along though. Now with that being said, here in the Slowpoke well, we actually run into the first trainer in the game that has 3 Pokemon on their team, meaning that we're going to have to take out all 3 of these in order to get through this one. Fortunately, we're up against 2 Zubats that aren't going to be able to do massive amounts of damage to us unless we get confused and hit ourselves multiple times. So it should just be a matter of spamming Bind and hoping that it actually hits. Still, because we're over leveled, we get through that fight pretty easily and we're ready to get to Jamesy Proton at the end. And here Coughing has significantly lower special defense than defense, so I'm going to go for special moves here. Of course, we get poisoned, and the poison might actually be significantly stronger than these wrapping moves. Honestly, I don't know, but this is kind of scary, especially because we're likely to miss a lot, and this Coughing is doing decent damage with its attacks. So we get very close to knocking it out, but we go down ourselves. I think we need to go into this fight with a Poison Cure Berry in order to be safer. So this time we're successfully avoiding the poison, at least so far, and that means that we're taking Coughing down significantly faster than it's been able to damage us. So clearly these wrapping moves are kind of random, depending partially on our opponent's decisions, partially on whether or not we actually hit. So there could be situations where it's a matter of resets to get through with the wrapping moves. Still, you don't feel it very good whenever that's the situation. But with that done, we can make our way now into Bugsy's gym, and we can just see how good Fire Spin does here. I think it's going to do at least reasonable damage against most of these opponents. It would be really nice if Fire Spin could actually burn opponents and have that secondary effect. The fact that Fire Spin only deals damage and then its little chip damage is what I kind of dislike about this move. So I've fought the required trainers in here, but before I go to fight Bugsy, I'm actually going to test out rival number 2, because once we fight Bugsy, we're going to lose access to the other 2 trainers that are in the gym there. Whereas if we fight rival 2 first and we fail, we'll know that we need to grind more levels and we'll be able to take those fights on just to get a a little extra experience. So let's just see how this goes first on our rival. He's going to lead off, of course, with the Ghastly. This is why we had to have good move coverage. Wrap can't affect this Pokemon. Fortunately, our Whirlpool and Fire Spin can. Now we get licked and paralyzed, which I guess is fine, but we really need to actually land some hits with Fire Spin because the chip damage is not doing anything for us. So we do manage to finally take Ghastly down. Zubat is out next. I'm going to go for the Wrap here, and we are just taking very significant amounts of damage as well as being paralyzed and confused, and we simply get Bite until we finally go down. Now obviously a big part of that was being paralyzed, but I don't see any way that we're going to take Ghastly down fast enough to avoid paralysis. So let's get into the gym and just fight the other randos so that we can get more experience to try that again. And now we would normally be able to learn Twister via level up here, but we're not going to learn that move in spite of the fact that it would be a significant upgrade on any of these moves we're currently running. No, at level 15, it's time to go back and try the rival again. Let's see if we can actually get the victory or if we're going to need to do more level grinding. Now we actually get through that Ghastly with no paralysis, meaning we're faster than the Zubat. We can come in and start wrapping, and we're doing pretty decent damage here. I think we're going to get our first look at the Croconaw. And fortunately against Croconaw, we resist water type moves. We would have resisted all the starters types, but this Pokemon knows Rage, and that's kind of the issue. We're going to have to hit a lot of times here. So if it's using Rage, it's definitely going to be increasing the damage of that move. Instead, it's just going Scratch here, which even that appears to be enough to simply knock us out. So I think we're going to go down again on this battle. So that's all right. Let's try Bugsy once just to see if we can beat him. And then we're probably going to just have to do a lot more level grinding to get through that Rival 2 fight. So first up against Bugsy, I'm going Fire Spin on the Metapod. Harden obviously doesn't matter against a special move, which all fire type moves are, so we're going to get through this Pokemon just fine. Out next is the Scyther, and he starts setting up the Fury Cutter, and he's faster. Now Fire Spin's not actually doing that much, so it looks like he's taking a significantly larger percentage of damage from the chip damage that comes after, but Fury Cutter builds up too much and we simply lose that fight. So even with a super effective move, we cannot win that fight at this point, at least not reliably, I don't think. So we're gonna have to go start grinding some levels. And now I said we would never one-shot an opponent, but we actually do one-shot Hiker Anthony's Geodude. 4-time super effective Whirlpool did the trick, but I don't think we're gonna get used to that, that's for sure. So after going to fight all of the trainers that are available between Violet City and Azalea Town, we've made it to level 18. That gives us at least a little bit more damage potential. Let's see if it's now enough to get through Bugsy or not, and if we can get through the rival or not. So Bugsy attempt number 2, we're obviously just going Fire Spin. He goes Harden, but now it looks like Fire Spin is a 2-hit KO on the Metapod. Very nice. Out next comes the Kakuna. So with Fire Spin, we should be able to get a 2-hitter yet again. That Pokemon goes down. That brings us to the Scyther on nearly full health. We do pretty decent damage here. 12 damage that turn. So this is going to be like a 5-hit KO against this Pokemon, ignoring chip damage. It's starting to build up Fury Cutter though, and we're getting a lot of misses here. So we're just going to miss the range on that one. But I think it comes down to the fact that we missed so many times. I think one more hit would have gotten it. So I am going to reset here on this one and try again. This time he sends out Scyther second. We missed the first Fire Spin. Now he's going Quick Attack though, which is actually kind of good. We don't want him setting up the Fury Cutter if we can help it. And the fact that he's going for Quick Attack is kind of interesting. I think that's bad strategy on his part, but we'll take it. Meaning we get to the Kakuna, and this Pokemon will simply go down in a couple Fire Spins. So we do actually manage to beat Bugsy on the next attempt and get to level 19. Now, of course, the Hive Badge does not give us any sort of boost in our stats, but we're at a higher level, so let's see if we can actually manage to get through the rival now. So we get through the Ghastly, but once again, we are paralyzed, and we're just really hoping not to hit ourselves in confusion a bunch of times or be paralyzed a bunch of times, which could result in us losing just due to that. We do manage to get back to the Croconaw in this one, but Scratch did 5 damage, so it's going to knock us out in 5 hits basically from that range. And we're clearly not doing enough damage with Wrap in order to get through. Still, this could just be a question of not getting getting paralyzed because we could get a better range on that Zubat, so I'm gonna keep testing. This time we get through without being paralyzed from the first Ghastly, and now if we can just avoid hitting ourselves in confusion here, we do get confused, but as long as we just hit Wrap and don't hit ourselves in confusion, we should get through on green health. That brings us to the Croconaw, where we're just going to sit here and spam Wrap, and we're just hoping that it doesn't do too much damage back to us. We do seem to be getting a significantly better range here, so while it's not pretty, only 3 levels higher, we are able to win with our wrapping moves. And just like that, we can progress in the game. So yeah, really not as bad as I expected. I thought we were going to just do massive level grinding and then have to start blackout grinding on the rival. But it turns out that we were able to get that fight to go, and we can progress now to Whitney. Now, previously in the minimum battle series, we basically destroyed Whitney with everything, but I highly doubt we're going to destroy Whitney in this one. I think we're going to need an awful lot of luck to get this fight to go, because rollout is going to build up way too fast, and because we're a flying type, that rollout is going to be a major wall. I probably should have done this with a Dragonair instead of a Dragonite, but it's too late for that now. We're already into it. So I'm gonna kind of do my standard route first, going into the underground, getting the coin case, etc., and then we'll make our way over to Whitney's gym and probably end up doing a bunch of level grinding after that. Now, of course, we make it to Whitney herself without any real issues. The question is just, can we win this fight? I'm gonna try it once, but I highly doubt it. Let's just see though. So first up, we've got the Clefairy. I'm going to go Wrap on this Pokemon. It has lower defense, so this just makes sense. Hit Metronome Stomp, which doesn't do that much to us, and then it double slaps. But honestly, I just don't see a way that we're going to get through with enough HP, and then it Metronome's Whirlwind, causing us to have to reset just because we had to send out a different Pokemon. So let's try this one again. We do get through the Clefairy on the second attempt, allowing us to get our first shot here at the Miltank, which has significantly lower special defense. So I'm going to use Fire Spin instead, and we can just see rollout is building up so much. There's no way that we get through at our current level. So let's go start grinding. So after clearing out a bunch more trainers, we're at level 23. I'm ready to go back and try my hand at Whitney again. Let's see if she's now at least any more reasonable than she was before. We've also added the charcoal in order to make our Fire Spin a little bit stronger. So as the Miltank comes out, I'm gonna go for Fire Spin since it is the move that's slightly boosted here. The whole issue is just that we're going to get massive damage from rollout. Now, it missed a rollout there, which was pretty lucky for us, but rollout is the reason I'm not using the gold berry here, because I'm pretty sure that it will simply build up too much and knock us out. And here at level 23, we can see that we got at least Miltank down to yellow health thanks to the miss, but it's still nowhere close to getting through, so I think we have to go grind even more. So we'll make our way up north through the national park, fight all of those trainers. If it's still not going after that, then we're just gonna deposit all our Pokemon and blackout grind against Whitney. So after beating all of the available trainers in the area, we're up to level 25 and just about to level up to 26. Let's see if this gives us any sort of range here. Otherwise, I'm really just gonna hate my life grinding here. So once again, we get to the Miltank on green health, and it's just a matter of how much damage we're able to do. The question also is, how much damage do we do with different moves? Fire Spin with the charcoal does about 10 damage here after the chip damage. Wrap does just ever so slightly more, so it seems like maybe Wrap strats are the way to go. Still, without rollout misses, we're simply going to lose, so I think we're gonna have to just deposit all of our Pokemon and blackout grind here for a chance to be able to get through this one. Now, the one benefit of blackout grinding against a gym leader is that you can effectively just get the luck in order to finally beat them. That might be what we need, is just to get a really lucky run where we actually get through this, but otherwise we're just going to sit here and level up multiple times on that Clefairy. Here we do get a nice rollout miss from the Miltank, but then it hits and we simply go down. We got it all the way down to 7 HP remaining though, so who knows, maybe this one can be possible with the right kind of luck. But we did get to the Miltank on full health that time, which is something I don't expect to happen very often. So it took tons and tons of attempts, but finally at level 28 we managed to get through that fight. That was tedious. over an hour 10 minutes just to beat Whitney. Now we can of course get a badge boost in our speed as well as an increase in the power of our normal type moves. So now we have a reason to kind of prefer to use wrap and bind. Of course that's not going to help us at all on Morty in the next section, so it seems like every time we get a small advantage it turns out to not actually be any good. But you know, hey, we're moving on. So now it's time to get up and take on the Kimono Girls and then rival number 3. I expect this section to be really hard as well with the rival, so we're probably going to be back to the grind. We'll just have to see. But because we're so incredibly over leveled right now, we actually get through the Kimono Girls with no issue. We're going straight to rival 3. I'm very hopeful that we have a chance against him. Obviously we're going to be cursed though, and I think that's basically going to end us. I don't see any way that we're getting through this section of the game with curse on, and I don't see us one-shotting against that Haunter unless we get to a massively high level. So this might actually be the point where this run basically becomes impossible. Still, we do one-shot the Magnemite after the Haunter goes down. Here we're going to have to deal some serious damage to the Zubat. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, we just need to have a Goldberry, but no, we got basically no damage here on the Croconaw, and there's really nothing that we can do. It has higher defense than special defense, but both of our special moves are resisted, so there's no point going for anything other than Wrap there, and Wrap just didn't do nearly enough damage. So I'm going to go grind a ton of battles, and then we will come back here and try this again, and then if it's still not working, we're going to be back to the Blackout grind. And here, after clearing out the lighthouse and everything on the way to Olivine, we can get the rare candy right here and then make our way back to Egg Critique. Let's see if we can beat rival 3 or not. So this time when the rival sends out his Haunter, I'm just going to stick with the strategy of Fire Spin, of course. A critical hit did about half, and then he goes Lick instead of going for Curse, but he curses after that, so there was nothing we could do there. Magnemite's out next. We go Fire Spin. We do not get a one-hit KO. It's clearly a crit that one-shots here. Still, we managed to get through that Pokemon. Out comes the Zubat. We wrap. This is going to take at least 2 wraps to get through. We do take it down, but we're on very low health going to the Croconaw. We snap out of confusion just to get a bite, and here we can just see how much damage we do. We did 13 damage, so that makes this a 6-hit KO, so really no chance there. I'm simply going to black out and keep the XP, and now let's move over towards the Lake of Rage. Let's fight all the trainers that we can going over this way. So after beating everything that is currently available at the Lake of Rage, we're up to level 35, and this still might not be enough. So I think the only thing to do at this point, if we do fail, is just blackout grind against the rival and hope that we can find a way through eventually. We're still not one-shotting against the Magnemite there, which means we're definitely not going to be one-shotting here against Zubat either. So when we get to Croconaw Confused, we're simply not going to stand much of a chance. We did do 16 damage there though, so this is now like a 5-hit KO rather than a 6-hit KO. Still, we can get to Croconaw, and that makes me feel like we should just grind this one out. This time we get to the Croconaw at level 37, still on green health. We do 17 damage here, which effectively would make this a 4-hit KO, assuming that we can manage all the hits. So we might just need a critical hit at this point in order to get through. Unfortunately, we miss and lose, but this is actually starting to look somewhat possible. Here we finally get a run where we're not under curse at level 38, and that means that we can simply wrap on the Croconaw. Once we get that level of luck to just get Spite and Lick from the very first Haunter, which doesn't happen often but can happen, we're actually able to win this fight. But we had to nearly double the level of our opponents in order to do it, which is ridiculous. And now we have to go into Morty's gym where, again, we don't have anything great. We're going to be dealing with curse. I think this is going to be rough. I think we're going to end up fighting all the trainers in here and still blackout grinding in order to beat Morty at the end. And here it turns out that just this first trainer in the gym with his Ghastly is a massive wall because we have to get through so many Pokemon. He's basically guaranteed to curse us at some point, and we don't one-shot with our moves. Even with the Charcoal on, this is not a one-hit KO with Fire Spin. So this fight looks completely ridiculous, and honestly, we're only going to get through by just getting really good luck. We do finally get through, but man, oh man, that took a short eternity. After that, though, there was only 1 or 2 Pokemon on each of these other gym rando trainers teams. So I think we'll get through them pretty quick. Let's make our way straight to Morty. So we're coming into Morty at level 41. Honestly, though, the fact that we're all the way up to level 41 at this point in only the 4th gym makes me think there's no way we beat Red in this. So we might just be trying to see if we could beat Johto. I'm honestly not sure, but first things first, let's get into this gym leader battle. Now, first up, he has the Ghastly. I'm going to go Fire Spin. He curses after we miss. We miss again. I think we've already lost this attempt. Still, we do knock it out after the curse. And with too many misses, we're simply going to go down in this one. And we didn't even do half to the Haunter. So yeah, if we get cursed, that's basically game over. There's only one other rando to fight here in the gym, this lady that I never fight. We'll fight her to get some XP, but then it's just time to blackout grind on Morty himself, because we've already fought every other trainer that's available in the game at this point, unless we want to go back all the way to the beginning of the game. But I mean, it's not like those Pokemon between Cherry Grove and Violet are gonna give us that much experience. This time we get through the Ghastly with no curse on though, so the Haunter curses instead, and then Nightshades. Still, we do manage to knock that Pokemon out finally. Gengar's out next. We did barely anything here, and we have to use either Fire Spin or Whirlpool. There's nothing else we can do against these ghosts. So even without Hypnosis, we're just not going to deal enough damage here. It looks like in order to get through the Gengar, it's at least a 5-hit KO, and Curse will basically knock us out in at most 5 hits if we don't have an HP that's evenly divisible by 4. But even then, like, that's just going to take too many turns to ever actually get through. This time we do manage to get to Gengar on full health, but it just takes so many turns to knock this Pokemon out. We do manage to get through though, getting us to the next Haunter, but we're just not going to do enough damage before Curse takes us down. So we've been blackout grinding for a hot minute here. We're all the way up to level 42 at this point, but honestly, I just have no idea what level I'm actually going to be able to win this fight at. Now, it's worth noting that I'm not using vitamins yet. I'm going to hold off on adding stat experience until I get to level 100. If we get to level 100 and we still cannot win against a certain opponent, that's the point where we will max out our stat experience in order to get the true strongest possible Dragonite. And I'm starting to believe that that's going to be a requirement at some point in this run. Here at level 47, we've finally got a run where we don't have Curse on. We just knocked out the Gengar as we get to level 48. We've made it to the final Haunter. It's going Nightshade, of course, to do as much damage as possible. So we actually need to hit everything. But finally, level 48, we managed to beat Morty. Considering in the minimum battle series how many Pokemon have been able to completely crush Morty, or at the least use hidden power Dark to get through this fight, this is insane. Look at the stats on the left side of the screen. Oh my god, everything is well over 120 at this point, and yet we still were struggling to get through Morty this entire time. And the fact is that we can't use Surf until we've beaten Morty, so we didn't have the option to go fight the Rocket Hideout or go down to Jasmine or anything. But now maybe we're so over leveled that we're just going to crush for a minute here. So the first thing that I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to go down to Cyanwood so that we can reach the point where we can actually fly outside of battle. That's my hope anyway, by beating Chuck. And honestly, I don't think we have too much to fear from Chuck. We resist fighting moves, we resist water type moves. So I think we're going to get through this just fine, especially given that we're so massively over leveled, but who knows? This one, our moves are so incredibly weak that this might not actually be possible. But this is one situation at least where I'm not even going to bother trying to avoid traders anymore, because I think we're going to need the levels anyway at some point in the run. But with that, let's just get straight into the gym. First, we've got a double battle that could theoretically be hard depending on what our opponent uses. Now, of course, in this generation, the special defense of the Hitmonlee has gone up significantly, so we're going to go wrap strats here. Hitmonlee, I'm not really worried about. He's just going going to use things like Jump Kick, which don't really do that much damage to a flying type. What I'm worried about is maybe Ice Punch here from the Hitmonchan. It theoretically could do a lot of damage. Instead, it's going Comet Punch though, so maybe he's just random. And sure enough, he's not using the best moves, so we get through nice and easy. With those two guys done, I think we're fine to make our way to Chucky Boy, and let's just see if we can beat him. And after a quick heal, we have made it to Chuck, and this is going to be ridiculous, I think, but I'm just going to try it. We're already massively over leveled, so I think we can win, but who knows? Honestly, I have no idea when I can actually win battles, in spite of the fact that my stats are absolutely insane at this point in the game. But he's going to lead off, of course, with his Primeape. Primeape has lower defense than special defense, and we have a higher attack stat, so it's pretty clear we go for Wrap on this Pokemon. We do less than half, so this looks to be a 3-hit KO with Wrap here. Still, we do take that Pokemon down. Out next comes the Poliwrath, and of course, this Pokemon could put us to sleep. Surf and Dynamic Punch are at least resisted here, and while Poliwrath has lower special defense than defense, we don't have great moves to use there, so we're just going to stick with Wrap on this one. That did very little damage. We get hit by Dynamic Punch, which does basically nothing, though we do get confused here, and we're just hoping to land at least one more Wrap as we get confused again by Dynamic Punch. We do manage to hit, so we beat Chucky Boy on the first attempt as we get to level 49. So Chuck turns out to be significantly easier than Morty. That curse just honestly doesn't care about your level or stats, because if you can't knock opponents out quickly, you're just going to get cursed down. So Morty honestly might have been the hardest trainer in the game for this strategy. I'm honestly not sure. At least he's the hardest here in the Johto gyms so far. But now I'm just going to see if I can clean sweep everything. Since we are a dragon type, I think we want to avoid Pryce for now. This is one of the few situations where Pryce theoretically could be hard. So we're going to go to Jasmine next, where our Fire Spin and Whirlpool will at least have some good damage potential, assuming that we actually hit. I think we'll be able to get through the Magnemites and the Steelix, but let's just see. Level is not the issue, that's for sure. So it's time for Jasmine attempt number 1. So Jasmine, of course, leads off with the Magnemite. I'm going to go Fire Spin here. We do not get the one-hitter and we get paralyzed, but this is going to be a 2-hit KO, and it's not like Thunderbolt's doing that much to us. So it's really just a matter of when we can actually hit the next Fire Spin. We just keep missing. Still, we do take that first Magnemite down. Out comes the Steelix, and we could go either way, I think, but I'm gonna save the Fire Spins for the Magnemite, so I'm gonna go Whirlpool here. Did about a quarter, really not too bad. Iron Tail does decent damage here though, and because we're on fairly low health, I think we're just losing this first attempt. But in fact, we knock out Steelix, so we've made it to the final Magnemite on this attempt. I think we could get this if we just didn't miss so many times on the first Magnemite, so I'm going to reset here. So while we are paralyzed, we do manage to get to the Steelix with better HP this time. The issue is just that we take a critical hit and then she Hyper Potions, so we're clearly losing this attempt as well. Still, a critical hit from Fire Spin I think will one-shot one of these Magnemites, and that could be all that we need. Alternatively, it might be worth it to go for the Paralyzed Cure Berry here, but who knows? I think we can get through just like this as long as we land the Whirlpool. We do, but we don't quite get the range to take Steelix down. Still, one more Whirlpool does the job. We actually get to the final Magnemite with slightly less than half HP left, so it's just a matter of landing 2 Fire Spins here. We land it, so it took several attempts, but we did manage to beat Jasmine without any additional level grinding, and we can move on in the game. Now, I think that fight could have been made easier by going to the Rocket hideout first, but hey, you know, we're just trying to do what we can do with what we got at the moment. And with that, we'll just come catch a red Gyarados. I do want to catch this Pokemon for HM usage, but after that, we can simply progress to the Rocket hideout. I'm also going to take this opportunity to get the Rare Candy and Elixir that are over here, and then we will move on in the game. And now it's worth noting that while I am 2 hours and 26 minutes into this run, I actually had to quit yesterday because I got way too just grinding against Morty. So this is day 2 at this point. And on top of that, I'm using a lot of speed up here. I have a turbo button that allows me to basically play at 10 times speed when I'm just grinding battles over and over again. And I'm using that very liberally here. So don't take that time as gospel. It's probably about double that amount of time if I'm being honest. So here we reach the executive in the rocket hideout. And at this point, we're so incredibly over leveled that a lot of opponents are 1 or 2 hit KOs at most. So we really have no issue getting through any of these fights. That being said, I do have a little bit of worry about the Pryce fight, just because I think Blizzard will do significant damage to us. And if we can't manage to hit, we may actually go down. We're going to have to see how that fight actually goes. So I'm just going to beat up on these final rockets and make my way over there, as I'm already up to level 50 at this point. So we have just the rocket female executive to get through at the very end of this section. She's also rapping with her Arbok. Our rap does significantly more damage, but everything here in this run at this point is not about chip damage at this point. It's entirely just about the direct damage of our attacks, which are getting super strong just because we're super over leveled. So we can win those fights, but man, this 1/16 of HP setting of rap in Gen 2 was clearly just way too weak. There's a reason they buffed it later in later gens, both by making it last more turns every single time it hits and by doing a greater percentage of HP of damage, because that chip damage basically turns out to be completely irrelevant in pretty much every fight. And now, because this is not a minimum battles run, I'm not even going to worry about these electrodes. I'm just going to knock them out. If they self-destruct, who cares? I only worry about not getting the XP here when I'm running on minimum battles. In this case, it's really not a big issue either way. But with the rocket hideout cleared, I'm going to come and try to fight Pryce. If I struggle, I will start grinding against the trainers in his gym. We know Pryce is bad, but this could be just the one rare situation where he's actually difficult. So let's get into it and find out. So Pryce attempt number 1, he leads off with Seal, which has lower defense than special defense. So Wrap is the play here. He goes Icy Wind, which does reasonable damage considering how weak this Seal is. Out next is the Dugong. We're sticking with the same strategy. We get a nice critical hit Wrap turn 1, but Aurora Beam did massive damage there. Now he rests, and we're gonna need to actually hit him multiple times in order to break through this rest strategy of his, because in theory he could just completely stall us out with rest strats. That being said, we do manage to get through. We've made it to Piloswine. This is the point where he has higher defense than special defense, and he's actually weak against fire, so we're going to go for the fire spin. He misses the first blizzard, misses the second blizzard. Now he hyper potions though. A critical hit will win. Instead, we get hit by blizzard and we lose the first attempt against Pryce. That was really close though. I'm going to try this again. This time we get no rest from the Dugong, so we're getting through to Piloswine on better health. Goes for Mist, which we don't really care about. Then it hits the Blizzard though. That's not what we wanted to see. Plus we're missing. He gets the Hyper Potion off. We get a nice Blizzard Mist though, and that allows us to win on the second attempt. So Pryce, while he should have completely destroyed us, actually turned out to not be that hard, and we can move on now in the game. So we've got a big rocket section to deal with before we go over to fight Clair. I think Clair's going to be terrible in this one, because I'm pretty sure at least one of those Dragonairs knows Ice Beam, which is going to do significant damage, and we don't have anything super great here. We're just going to be spamming Wrap over and over again. So yeah, for now, let's just see how many levels we actually gain in the slow level up group here against this rocket storyline. Don't expect to gain a lot of levels before we get to Clair, and then we're probably just in for pain. So we make it to the first executive at the top of the radio tower. This guy just has so many coughings that love to self-destruct that this could actually be a problem because we're not going to knock him out quick, and because he's also likely to use smokescreen on us and lower our accuracy. So we're really kind of hoping that we're going to be able to get through this one, and if we get poisoned, that could also be pretty bad. Sludge is also doing significant damage here, and by the time he gets to the wheezing, he actually knocks us out. So I'm going to try this a couple times just to see, but this might actually not be a very good battle for us at this point. we might actually have to end up grinding here. And sure enough, I go down again. So I think the strategy is just to deposit all my other Pokemon. I'm going to fight all the other rando rockets that I haven't beaten yet, because we clearly need more levels just to get through that fight. I'm also just going to take a few other trainers that I can fight at this point in the game just to gain levels more efficiently. And while I'm out here training, I think I may as well just come fight Eugene as well. This fight should be super easy. We're just going to wrap his Drowsy, which is a 2-hitter, and even when he puts me to sleep, I don't think he's going to do significant damage to me, so we can simply just wait for the chance for us to wake up and knock him out. The Electrode knows Rollout, which is technically super effective here, but as long as we land enough hits, we don't really have to worry about that at this point. The Haunter, we have to be a little worried, but we're just going to go Whirlpool and hope that it doesn't manage to knock me out too quickly. Sure enough, we knock it out, and Eugene never stood a chance. And I'm just going to do a bunch of other things while I'm here, going and fighting some randos around the Whirl Islands. We'll probably go back to Mount Mortar and see if we can fight anybody there as well, just trying to gain as many levels as possible. I've also gotten the King's Rock and the Mystic Water in the case that I need them for specific opponents. And apparently we've just broken the game. This is the problem of using experimental emulators like Super Shucky. Apparently, it has died. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and redo a bunch of stuff, I think. But hopefully, we can get back here pretty quickly. Now, unfortunately, due to the Super Shucky crash, we went all the way back to level 41 before Morty. Basically, because the emulator crashed, it didn't save my data, even though I had been saving. This is a backup file, so I'm going to have to replay this entire section. I'm just going to use some shenanigans to get back to where I was at the rocket section of the game, and I'm just going to grind a bunch and level up. So don't worry about it. We'll get back there. But now the time of this run is completely just messed up. I'm sorry. Don't look at the time. Don't even look at the optional battles because it's going to break, but we'll get there eventually. But now that I know that I basically need to fight everything, I'm just going to go back and refight all the trainers in these gyms to make sure that I have the maximum amount of XP. We're not skipping anything at this point since we know that we need the levels. So after a ridiculous amount of grinding, I am back to where I was before the emulator just died. I find it funny that this run is so bad that even Super Shucky just said, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me quit, please. But we're going to see this through to the end. No, we do not allow our software to tell us what we can and cannot do. So now I have picked up quite a few items. There are still other traders out there that I could fight, but I wanted to test this out with a King's Rock, just because it then gives us a chance to flinch our opponents, and maybe by occasionally flinching, we could somehow find a way through this fight, especially because we're hitting our opponents so many times. It actually could make sense. So I'm going to try this executive again at my current level, level 51, and let's just see if we can manage to get a win or not. We actually get to the wheezing on green health here. We're just missing a bunch of times with Wrap, and the real issue is that we need the Wrap to hit so many times here against this Pokemon just due to its high defense and high HP that poison is probably just going to be too much here. Still, we managed to get at least to the wheezing, so I'm going to keep the XP. I'm going to feint the rest of my team and just start blackout grinding if I have to. But before that, I'm just going to fight every trader that I can possibly find at this point in the game, because I think it's a little bit more efficient than just blackout grinding in terms of how quickly I can gain levels. So at this point, I've fought literally every trainer I can find to get to level 54, and now we just have to see if we can beat this executive or not. If we can't, we're just going to end up level grinding here against him until we can actually win. So I'm just going to put the rest of the team into the PC for now. Let's see how this actually goes. Here at level 55, we finally get through the wheezing by surviving its self-destruct, so we just have to get through these last couple coughings and then we should be able to get a win. Still, the smoke screen is having an effect here because we just keep missing. Self-destruct takes us to low health on that second to last coughing. And please, just please let me actually hit. We do finally manage to get through the executive at level 55. So yet again, just insanely difficult to progress in this run, given the fact that our moves are so incredibly weak and inaccurate. Like when I did the Snorlax with the worst possible moves run, we were running 20 base power moves on that Pokemon and Splash for memes. At least in that run, we were actually hitting most of the time with our moves. Here on the other hand, we're just so unlikely to hit in a lot of these situations once they use like a couple smoke screens on us that it's pretty easy to lose even to just rockets in this run. But with that finally done, we can go into the basement and it's time to try our hand at rival number 4. And this could also actually be a pretty tough fight. We're going to have to see if we can actually make it through or not. So rival 4 attempt to number 1. Against the Golbat, I'm just going Wrap. Of course, we miss and we get confused, which is pretty terrible. But we snap out of confusion after that. This looks to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon at our current level if we can actually land the hits. We actually don't quite get the range, so it takes 3. Now we've got the Magnemite. It, of course, paralyzes us when we miss, and it wouldn't have been a 1-hit KO with the Fire Spin anyway. Haunter is out next. This Pokemon obviously can just go Curse and completely wreck us. And yeah, it's looking like we're probably not going to beat the rival, so back to the grind. The next attempt, we actually get a Thunder Wave miss from the Magnemite, and then it went Sonic Boom, so we actually do take that Pokemon down. We're 2 Haunter without any status, but now of course we're just missing on this Pokemon. However, once we do hit, it does go down. We've gotten to the Sneasel, where I'm going to go for the Fire Spin since it's super effective. Feint Attack isn't going to do that much, but actually since it has lower defense, I'm going to try the Wrap here. It does not quite get the KO, so we simply go down yet again. I think we have to get a run where we don't get cursed here. He has used things like Shadow Ball, for example, against us with that Haunter, so I think it's possible. It's just a matter of resets. Still, I think I'm going to need XP later on, so I'm not even going to bother with the resets. I'm just going to go for the Blackout grind to get more XP. And of course, I've realized at this point that there's no point in having the King's Rock because it has no chance to flinch with any of my moves, only in Gen 2. So I'm going to replace this with an item that actually at least gives me some advantage. We will use the Charcoal instead. Like, I get why they would feel like that was maybe overpowered, but honestly, I think we would have needed the flinches here. So it's kind of terrible that they don't actually make that an option with these terrible moves. Now this time we actually get through Sneasel for the first time at level 57, so we at least get a C for Alligator. I'm going to see what Wrap does. Oh, that did nothing. As usual, when we get to the rival's ace, I just sit here and look at Wrap and say, oh, that did absolutely nothing. We get him down to half health, but there was no way we were going to win that fight with the curse on. So we're just going to be grinding here for a very long time, I feel like. This time we do get through the Haunter without curse, however. So we've got no status on as we're going to the final 2 Pokemon. We knock out Sneasel. Now for Alligator, can't really do anything crazy to us in terms of damage. So I think we actually are going to get the win finally. That took a small eternity. We're up to almost 4 hours in this run. Of course, considering that we had emulator trouble, that's part of the reason that it's taken so long. But most of this has just been the fact that this run is completely terrible. So I'm not going to let up. I'm just going to keep fighting everything and getting the levels while I can here, because I think Clair's gym is going to be terrible. The Elite Four is going to be terrible. I just see no situation where anything is ever going to go well for the rest of this run until maybe we get to Kanto and we just stunt on a few gym leaders because we've already beaten the Johto section. But even then, I'm not sure that it's going to actually be feeling like a victory lap for very long, especially once we get to Blue and Red. I think we're probably going to end the game at best getting to Blue or Red and then just finding that we cannot progress. Though an item like Leftovers when we get to Kanto could really help this one. It will be something to test out at that point. So finally we reach the director and get the card key, but for all I know we're going to struggle against the executives at the top. So yet again, this is a spot where we're just going to prepare to grind if we absolutely have to. through. Still, we have made it to the final executive, so let's just see if we can actually win. First up, we've got Houndour, of course. We're going to go for the Whirlpool. It's not a one-hitter, but it is a two-hitter with this move, so we do take that Pokemon down. Out next comes the Coughing. I'm just going to go Fire Spin here since I don't really have anything else to use Fire Spin on. This is a two-hitter as well, so we do manage to take that one down. Houndoom is out last. We go for the Whirlpool. It does over a third, so yeah, as long as we get the hits, we're actually going to finally complete this section of the game. Then we can move on to Clair and probably feel even more pain. So very nice. Hey, Dragonite, you have actually wrapped yourself to the top of the radio tower. So I guess that's an accomplishment for a rapper, but still, it's definitely not what we signed up for when we started this run. Now, we will get the pink bow right here. I know I could have gotten it on a Tuesday as well, but we at least now have that move as a way to boost our normal type moves if we need it. So now we are in Blackthorn. We're ready to go into Clair's gym, and I'm just going to deposit all my Pokemon right away because I just think it's so likely that I lose here, and we'll just take the blackout, grind, level ups as much as we can. And of course, even at a very high level, the big issue that we have is that we often get paralyzed in this gym, and we get hit by moves like Dragon Rage that do fixed damage, and there's really nothing good that we can do against that. That is basically a perfect strategy for destroying an opponent who's trying to whittle you down with such weak moves. So let's see if we can even manage to beat any of Clair's Dragonairs here, or is this going to be an absolute wall for this Pokemon and we have to start grinding somewhere else? Clair attempt number one, she leads off with the first Dragonair. We go Wrap, it goes Thunder Wave, of course. Now this first one only has Dragon Breath and Slam that we're really worried about, and Dragon Breath isn't going to do that much damage, so we actually get through the first Dragonair no problem. Second Dragonair again is basically stuck only using Dragon Breath because its electric type moves are resisted, so we should be able to get through this second Dragonair fairly easily most of the time as well. That brings us to the third Dragonair though, which knows Ice Beam, and that move is going to utterly destroy us. So I think we're only getting through two of the Dragonairs on average, and that could prove to be a major problem. Still, at least we know that we can grind here on this fight, so I guess that's a small victory. I don't think there's any point of having a paralyzed Cure Berry because we're simply just gonna get paralyzed again later, so it doesn't really do anything for us. I think we have to be able to just win by going all in on attack with our Wrap, and that is clearly not going to happen for quite some time. I think if we can get to the point where these Dragonairs are 2-hit KOs with Wrap, of course including the pink bow that we have on, at that point we'll at least get a chance to see the final Kingdra, but that's going to be a long time coming from the looks of it. We're all the way at level 60 right now, so way over leveled for this fight. If we were using any normal standard strategy, we'd just be completely crushing this gym, but the fact that we're stuck with only Wrap is the major issue in this one. At level 61, it just wanted to teach us Outrage, which would have been perfect for this run, but unfortunately we can't learn that move, so we had to forget it and re-put Wrap on the move set. Here at level 64, we actually get our first look at Kingdra, basically just getting perfect luck to get here, but then it just uses Dragon's Breath and we simply lose. And obviously she can heal her Kingdra as well, so I honestly don't think we're getting through this fight for a very long time. At this point, I'm basically going to start using Rare Candies in order to level up, because otherwise grinding here with this slow level up Pokemon is gonna take so incredibly long that I don't think I'm ever gonna get through this within any reasonable amount of time to actually finish this video. And besides, we can simply add on the stat experience later if we reach level 100 and a fight is still not working. So I have now a ridiculous number of Rare Candies, and I'm just gonna level up to logical damage rounding thresholds and try this fight again each time. Now, we already know level 64 doesn't work, so level 65 wouldn't make that big of a difference. Let's go up to level 70 and see if we can manage this fight. And again, I'm going this route because of the fact that we don't have any other trainers to fight. We've basically fought everything in the game, and while yes, I know you can rematch trainers in this generation, still slow level up group, it would take a small eternity. The question of this video is not, can I grind 100 hours to complete this run? The question is it possible to even beat the game with these moves? So that's what we're going for. Let's see if we can get the luck now. Here at level 70, Rap is getting a 2-hit KO on the Dragonairs from the looks of things. So that does improve the ranges quite a bit in this fight. Still, Ice Beam's going to do massive damage. There's nothing we can do about that. But we actually get to the Kingdra with some HP remaining. Still, it looks like it's going to two-shot us with the Dragon Breath. So we're not going to be able to win this fight. Actually, it turns out to be a 3-hitter, but still, there's no chance that we're winning there. So I'm going to go up to level 75. That gets us 2 more damage rounding thresholds. We will not learn Hyper Beam. That would be so nice to have Hyper Beam here, but we're just going to go to this level and try to win now. So we're literally double the level of the Dragonairs now, and fortunately their Dragon Breath doesn't do that much to us. The issue is just paralysis and not being able to move. So while we do get through the 3rd Dragonair, we're once again to the Kingdra without great HP, and we are paralyzed, so we simply couldn't hit enough times. So now let's try this fight at level 80 and see if that gets us through. We get a nice Thunder Wave miss there from the 1st Dragonair. We get Thunder Wave from the 2nd Dragonair, but that means we're going to the 3rd Dragonair with very good HP. I think this one will go Ice Beam no matter what, but that finally gets us to the Kingdra on green health. Now the issue is that we can't hit Rap on this Pokemon, but we should be able to survive at least a few more hits if we can actually land a hit. We didn't take any accuracy drops, so that is not the issue. But now she Hyper Potions on the Kingdra. At this point, it's looking like it might just barely be possible if we get the right kind of luck and don't miss enough times. So I'm going to reset on this just a couple times to see if I can get it to go at level 80. Otherwise, we're going to have to just start leveling up some more because the range on that final Kingdra is still not looking great. But after multiple attempts, that still doesn't seem to quite be going. So let's go ahead and level up some more. We are now level 85 going into this fight. Let's see if that manages to somehow get us through. Now, we still lose, but we are starting to reach the point where I think maybe, just maybe, a paralyzed Cure Berry and getting a paralysis miss is enough to get us through this fight, because we should still two-shot the Dragonairs even without the pink bow on with our wrap. So basically we wrap them, we do just over half at this point. We can recover 1 paralysis, then we have to actually hit though. When we miss, that's basically, I think, a reset on this one. So here we get a nice paralysis miss from that 1st Dragonair. We get Thunder Waved by the 2nd Dragonair, but then we knock it out. Very nice. 3rd Dragonair goes for Thunder Wave instead of Ice Beam. So that gets us to the Kingdra with really high green health. It smoke screens. Obviously, it knows we're using Wrap. But here we have a lot more HP to work with to try to knock this Pokemon out. And finally, we do manage to beat Clair at level 85. It's not pretty. We honestly might have gotten it at level 80 if I had just switched to the paralyzed Cure Berry there. But the real point of that fight is that we still have Lance at the end of the game. He's going to be using like Outrage and doing significant damage to us. I think he also has Blizzard on some of his Dragonites. So if we're struggling this hard against Clair and Dragon Breath, we're going to be in serious trouble at the end of the game. So I'm now updating my prediction that we don't get to blue or red. I think we get to Lance and then the run basically ends. That's my prediction now, because I just can't imagine a way that we're actually going to win that fight. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I do think there's at least a high probability that that is the case. So now as we come in to explain our Pokemon philosophy to these old guys, the big problem is that we can't tell them that our philosophy is to, you know, just wrap everything. Clearly, if they knew what we were actually doing, they would not tell Claire to give us the badge. They would tell her, yeah, tell that guy that he needs to learn how to play Pokemon before you give him anything. Still, we have managed to progress, albeit with rare candies and at a ridiculously high level. I gotta say that my overlay is definitely not counting the optional battles right, because it doesn't count the levels when I'm blackout grinding. So yet again, that's something that I'm gonna have to look at in the overlay going forward. But the real answer here is that while the score currently shows 53.25 based on my score scoring rubric, we're probably actually closer to a score of 0 in terms of I have taken so many optional battles to grind to get levels. I'm not resetting here because there aren't a lot of situations where resetting gives me any advantage. For the most part, this entire run has really been about just leveling up so that Wrap or some other move does enough damage that we can actually win. So at this point, since I've switched to Rare Candies, I'm simply going to avoid most of these fights unless I accidentally run into them like this. So let's basically just make our way to rival number 5, see if we can win. If we can't win, then yet again, we just start slamming Rare Candies until we either win or we find the situation where the run becomes impossible. The other thing that we have to worry about here against the Elite Four is, of course, our PP. We're going to run out of PP pretty quick, I think, and there aren't that many ethers, elixirs, etc. in the game. I've gotten pretty much all the items that I can find. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time going back to get a bunch of others. So yeah, we're coming in as we are. Let's see if we can manage to beat Rival 5 here. So first up, he has his Sneasel. We're going to go Fire Spin and miss, of course. But after we hit, this is still a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon, in spite of it being super effective. Out next, we've got the Golbat. There's nothing really to do but Wrap here, and we do about half at this point to a level 36 Golbat. We do knock it out though. Out comes the Magneton. We're going for the Fire Spin. We miss, we get Thunder Waved, but then we knock it out with the next hit, so I guess that's kind of fine. We get cursed by the Haunter, which is terrible. Out comes Kadabra. Hopefully Wrap will just destroy this Pokemon. It does, so we've made it to Feraligatr, still on green health. This looks like maybe a 3-hit KO. We get hit by Future Sight, and then we get a miss. I think without the miss, we would have won. This looks to be a 3-hit KO, so I'm going to reset for this one because this actually looks possible at my current level. So once again, back to the Feraligatr. We are under the effect of Curse, and we get hit by Future Sight to knock us out. I think we need a run where we don't get paralyzed, which basically is a matter of actually hitting the first Fire Spin on this Magneton and getting the right range. We don't get it that time, but I think that is the luck that we need. And of course, if we can manage to win against this Haunter without getting cursed, we finally get the curse, unfortunately. So yet again, I think we're losing this one, but I do think that is the set of circumstances required to actually win this fight. So this time we do get to the Haunter without any status. It still goes curse, but at least we're not slower than our opponents. So we destroy the Kadabra. We don't have to worry about that Future Sight coming in. And now it's just a question of whether or not we can deal enough damage. We actually do. We survive with 12 HP remaining with no misses there on the Feraligatr, which was super important. If we miss even one hit on the Feraligatr, we're dead. So here, I'm just going to go into the Elite Four. We're going to save between each of them. We've got the Rare Candies if we need, but if we get really desperate, we're going to have to come back out and use like the box trick in order to get ourselves at level 100 with max stat experience, and I'm not sure that's even going to help against Lance, but who knows. Let's get into Willy Boy and see if we can actually win at level 85. He of course leads off with the Xatu. There's nothing really to do than Wrap here. Still, this appears to be a 2-hit KO at this point, so we get through that Pokemon nice and easy as we get to level 86. Jinx, of course, has low defense, so Wrap is the play. It's still not a 1-hitter, but she goes for Double Slap, so that's fine. Better than Ice Punch. We take it down even though we miss thanks to the chip damage. Out comes the Slowbro. We get a critical hit that does half with the first Wrap, and we knock it out with a second crit. Very nice. That brings out Xatu. We can just stick with the Wrap here. It's confused us with Confuse Ray and Max Potions. We need to not hit ourselves in confusion too much, but Psychic fortunately doesn't seem to be doing that much to us. So we knock out the Xatu. We've made it to the final Pokemon, Exeggutor. We could go a lot of ways, but it has lower special defense, which is why I'm going for the Fire Spin here. It is the obvious play, and 2 Fire Spins ends it. So yeah, Willy Boy, not that hard at level 85. Oh man, but we do at least have the advantage that we were able to beat one Elite Four member pretty easily. Now let's see how we do against Koga. Now Koga, of course, we're double the level of his Pokemon here already, but Fire Spin is the play on Ariados. It can't really do anything to us. It goes double team just because he's trying to troll, but we knock him out on the next hit. Fortress, we're also going Fire Spin. That's a one-hit KO. Very nice. Now Muck, there's really nothing to do other than Wrap here. It has higher special defense than defense, but then it goes for the acid armor. So now we have to flip that around and go for these special moves. And we get Toxic, which is like the worst thing that could happen to us in this run. Crobat is out next, and its stats are pretty balanced. So I'm going to go for the Wrap here, and it is going for double team. He knows the strategy, guys. He's learned from Gen 1. So we do manage to take that one down, though. Out comes the Venomoth. I'm going for the Fire Spin. He goes Psychic. And if we can just hit one more Fire Spin, we will actually win here. And just like that, we beat Koga in spite of the fact that we got Toxic on. That's pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. That is impressive in spite of the fact that we're at a super high level, because I thought it was going to just take too many turns to knock his Pokemon out. Turns out that was not the case. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use an elixir to restore my PP. We're going to come in, we're going to fight Bruno. I expect to beat Bruno on the first attempt because nobody loses to Bruno. But who knows? This could be the first time that he actually proves to be decent. Let's get into it and find out. So first up, he's got the Hitmontop. I'm going to go for Wrap on this Pokemon. It's got lower defense than special defense. So I think this is the correct play. And sure enough, we knock it out in 3 hits. Onix is out next. Whirlpool is the obvious solution for that Pokemon. It's an easy one-hit KO. Hitmonchan comes out and will likely go Ice Punch on us, and we get frozen. No, we trash talked Bruno, and now we're possibly going to lose. Now we could thaw out, but we need to thaw out soon because we're taking massive damage here. We did manage to defrost, so we do knock out the Hitmonchan. Machamp comes out next, and it has higher special defense than defense, and it's going Rock Slide, so it does have a super effective move against us. We really need to land 3 wraps here, and he goes for the max potion. Oh no, we're gonna lose to Bruno. So yeah, that's what I get for trash talking Bruno. Still, I think this is a winnable fight. I think it was really just the fact that we were getting terrible luck with that freeze there. If we're not frozen, I think we just win. So we get back to Hitmonchan again on very high health. We do over half with a critical hit. He does not get the freeze this time so far, and we knock out the Hitmonchan. So we're on very good health when we get to the Machamp, and now we yet again just need to not miss a million times, and maybe we can manage to win this fight. He goes for Foresight, or good job Bruno. The problem is that we've missed like 6 or 7 times on this Pokemon. So with a critical hit, he yet again knocks us out. If we can just avoid all those misses, we have a chance here. So back to the Machamp again. This time we're actually hitting our wraps, and we actually knock that Pokemon out. That brings out Hitmonlee, which doesn't have anything good against a flying type Pokemon, so we can simply use a couple wraps to take that one down, and we have beaten Bruno. It was not easy. Bruno actually proved to look pretty competent in that fight. Who would have thought? And now we have to deal with Karen. Now Karen has a Gengar, which I'm pretty sure has the ability to use Curse on us. So this fight could turn out to be absolutely terrible, but we're going to try it. At our current level, let's just see if we can actually get a win. Now the other thing, of course, is that this Umbreon could end up going for Confusion and going for Sand Attack on us. So there's a lot of ways that this fight can just go terribly. And it looks like it's a 3 or 4 hit KO to take that Pokemon down. Out comes the Gengar, and we just need to go for something like Fire Spin here. Of course, it does Curse, but we knock it out after that. Murkrow is out next, and we're really dealing with an accuracy drop here. If not for the accuracy drop, we might be able to get through this. It looks like Murkrow's just a 2-hit KO. Fire Spin for the Vileplume and Whirlpool for the Houndoom. The issue is just that we missed too many times in that fight. Let's try again. And I think if we get a Sand Attack from Umbreon, especially turn 1, we can simply just reset, because at that point it's reasonably likely, given how many turns we're going to have to hit opponents, that we're just going to lose. So this time we get through Umbreon confused, but without taking any accuracy drops. hits. We still get cursed by the Gengar, of course. There's nothing that we're going to be able to do about that. And we're hitting ourselves in confusion. So yet again, we're going to lose this attempt. This time we get no accuracy drops and no confusion from that Umbreon. And we still managed to miss the first fire spin on the Gengar. And we're simply taking too much damage from curse because we can't manage a hit due to the low accuracy of our moves. That being said, we do get to Murkrow. We get a one-hit KO on Murkrow. Houndoom comes out. We go for Whirlpool. It's going to be a two-hitter. It crunches us, but if we get a crit here, we will win. Unfortunately, we just went down due to the curse. This time we managed no misses on Gengar, so no curse damage there. We do get a miss on the Murkrow though. We did not get the crit to just one-hit it, and Houndoom is just surviving with too much HP. This might be a spot for an item like Mystic Water to try to get a better range there on that Houndoom. And of course, with Mystic Water on, I'm just going to go for the Whirlpool on the Gengar as well. For Murkrow, we can simply go for the Bind and knock it out in 2 hits. Houndoom is out now. We go Whirlpool. We're doing about half. She heals, but that allows us to knock that Pokemon out. Vileplume is out last. Fire Spin is going to be a 2-hit KO there. A crit would get us through, but that's going to be a lot of resetting here. I think we're just going to level up. So coming back at level 90 now, let's just see what kind of ranges we can get. We can't hit anything, so we're just losing this attempt. So once again, we get through the Gengar just fine. Of course, we start missing here on Murkrow, but we do take it down. Out comes the Houndoom. We'd really love a Whirlpool critical hit here to one-shot this Pokemon, or at least get pretty close to the one-shot. We just don't get the luck there. And after lots of attempts, that does not seem to be working, so we're going up to level 95 now to try to beat Karen. So now we get back to Houndoom at level 95. We are doing over half with the Whirlpool now, so we knock it out in 2. If we can just manage to hit with both of these fire spins, we should actually win here. Problem is that we've got 1 accuracy drop, and that's all it takes for us to lose. So the whole point here at level 95 is that we have to hit basically everything. If we miss at all, we basically just lose this fight, and there's nothing that we can really do about that. The low accuracy of these moves combined with their low power just basically makes this fight borderline impossible. Now, it's not actually impossible because we could sit here and reset for the perfect luck for a ridiculous amount of time. It's just that practically speaking, most of the time we will not win this fight. The Umbreon will have at least 2 or 3 turns to try to use Sand Attack on us just at the beginning, or we get confused and hit ourselves in confusion a bunch of times. And I think anytime you take a single Sand Attack, you basically have to reset because you actually have to hit everything for the rest of the run. And because we are nowhere near the range of getting a 1-hit KO here on the Gengar, it's not a situation where you could simply like hope to crit here in order to get a 1-hitter on this Pokemon and avoid curse. So yeah, I think we're going up to level 100 now. And here I actually think that the Pink Bow might be super important for just trying to get through this Espeon quickly. It's still a 3-hit KO at level 100 though. Nothing we can do about that. The Gengar also is still a 3-hit KO with a move like Whirlpool at level 100. The Murkrow is a 2-hitter still. We've made it to Houndoom. We go for the Whirlpool, but we're going to have to hit 2 and we simply go down. So the last thing that I think we can do to try to make this even borderline reasonable is to give ourselves maxed out stat experience on top of having a level 100 Pokemon. These are effectively the highest stats that you can ever get legally with a Dragonite. At level 100, you can have 385 HP, 366 attack, 288 defense, 298 special attack, 298 special defense, and 258 speed. This is officially the strongest possible Dragonite here. If we can't win now, we're not going to win. Here, we still do not do half damage against the Umbreon with the Pink Bow on. So while we do knock that Pokemon out, that's still not looking great. Now against the Gengar, we still do not do half damage against this Pokemon with Whirlpool. So we're still in the same range there. Wrap against the Murkrow, we did get a 1-hit KO there. Whirlpool on the Houndoom does over half now without even needing Mystic Water on. She maxed potions, but we hit the next Whirlpool, so that's perfectly fine. Then we miss a Whirlpool. And here given the fact that we're under the effects of Curse, there's nothing that we can do there. And Fire Spin here is still a 2-hitter on Vileplume, so we will still need a critical hit on that last Pokemon if we get there. So here we get a nice critical hit on the first Umbreon, and that allows us to knock it out, but we are confused. We snap out of the confusion to hit the Whirlpool on Gengar. It goes Lick turn 1, but then it curses. Nothing we can do there. It does go down, however. Back to the Murkrow, where maybe we got a range, maybe we got a crit that last time. I honestly am not sure, but we did not one-shot this time with Wrap. So it does go down, but now we're going to need to crit like crazy in order to win this fight. We do not get a crit there on the Houndoom, and we simply lose. And as best as I can tell, it is a range there on the Murkrow, so there might be situations where we do get the damage range to one-shot there and others where we don't, but that yet again is a pretty big factor of luck in this one. If we need a high damage roll on that Pokemon, we can see that we just barely missed the range on this one, but after Feint Attack it will go down from chip damage, but still that is not ideal. So at this point, the only way that I think we can progress in the game is if we somehow give ourselves a held item that we couldn't normally have here in this battle, because I have reset a ridiculous number of times on this battle. It is simply not working. Like, yes, it's technically possible. I'm sure if I sit here and reset all day, I might finally be able to get it, but honestly, it's not reasonable. And if this fight's going this terribly, I can only imagine what Lance and beyond is going to be. So I'm going to test 2 items that I think are kind of interesting. One is the Scope Lens, available via Mystery Gift in Gen 2. It's an item that increases your critical hit chance, because we see a couple situations here where if we just got a crit, we would be able to one-shot an opponent, and that could be the difference between winning or losing this fight. The other item that we can look at, which is much more standard, is Leftovers. I mean, you could simply trade this Pokemon to another Gen 2 cartridge, give it the Leftovers, and trade it back. So there wouldn't be any major, work needed to get access to that. And if that works, maybe, just maybe, that's the way we get through this fight. The logic there is that by gaining back a little bit of HP throughout the battle, maybe we have enough HP to take one more turn in spite of the curse. I'm going to try both. I'm going to start with the Scope Lens and see how it goes. So here we have no accuracy drops, and we are through the Gengar on very good health. Of course, without the Pink Bow, we're not going to get a one-hit KO range on this Murkrow. So we're really banking on the critical hits from the Scope Lens to get us through. We've made it to the Houndoom still on green health, but no crit this time. It goes Crunch. We're going to have to land another Whirlpool to knock that Pokemon out, but now we make it to the Vileplume. We can go Fire Spin. It hits. We do not get a crit, but we have survived, and we actually get the final hit there. So the Scope Lens did give us a crit on the very first Umbreon that helped, but outside of that, that was actually just good luck. So yeah, we managed to get the win. I'm just not sure if it's going to be enough here now that we've made it to Lance. Obviously, he is a tough matchup given that we can't even really use the Fire Spin anywhere here. Everything resists it. Whirlpool will be an option at least against Aerodactyl and Charizard, but everything else we're Wrap and Bind. That's the strat. Let's see how it goes. So Lance attempt number 1, we Wrap on the Gyarados. This looks to be a 3-hit KO here as he goes Rain Dance. That I think is fine. Hyper Beam did not do that much, so we knocked that Pokemon out. Out comes the Aerodactyl. This is where I'm going to go for the Whirlpool, and we get the 1-hit KO. Dragonite number 1 comes out. We go for Wrap. It goes for Thunder Wave. It's going for Thunder in the rain, of course, and then Hyper Beam, but Hyper Beam is not that bad for us. So we just need to land enough hits here, I think. The Paralysis is a bit of a problem, but I see no way that we get through this without Paralysis, given that his Dragonites all know the move Thunder Wave. But now we get Blizzard from the second Dragonite, and that is doing significantly more damage. And here I think we're probably going down, but we get a Blizzard Miss, so we actually get through. That brings out the Charizard. We go for the Whirlpool. We get the 1-hit KO with a crit, thank you Scope Lens. And that brings out the final Dragonite going Outrage, and we simply got knocked out. Still, this one might actually be possible if we get enough critical critical hits here. It could also really help us if we can get some misses from these Dragonites or, you know, Hyper Beam. We actually kind of like here because it gives a chance that they won't move the next turn and can make up for the fact that we are paralyzed. Blizzard is also kind of nice that it's so much less accurate in this generation. So we get through the second Dragonite on significantly better health this time, getting to the Charizard. Again, we're going to need 2 hits here in order to knock this Pokemon out, but we get the Whirlpool to hit, so it does go down. We've made it back to the final Dragonite using Outrage, and we're going to kind of hope that it gets confused. Oh, we get a critical hit. That's not what we wanted. If we could have survived and had it get confused and hit itself in confusion, we actually could possibly win this fight. The issue here is that we just don't seem to be getting this to go. However, I think Leftovers will make this one possible because it will give us just a trickle of HP. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try this with Leftovers. Same logic as what I said before. Simply we could trade to another cartridge and get it. Would probably also help against the Karen fight. So I think this is reasonable, especially because the Scope Lens didn't seem to do that much. It only gave us 1 crit in that battle, which we could have just reset for it anyway. So yeah, let's try this Leftovers and see how it goes. And obviously Leftovers is healing based on our HPs. So by the time we get to the third Pokemon, we're already completely healed back up. And even if we're paralyzed for a turn, at least we'll be recovering some HP that turn. Here we get a nice crit to knock that Dragonite out in 2, and we're on full health going to the second Dragonite. Blizzard does good damage, but we're going to recover some of that HP back. So we knock out that Dragonite still on green health as we go to the Charizard. It goes Hyper Beam, but doesn't do that much, and we heal back more than what its Hyper Beam is doing to us. So we're actually going to be able to get through at this point, I think, provided that we can just manage to land some Whirlpools here. We finally do knock it out. That brings us to the final Dragonite on full health. Here it goes Safeguard. We don't really care because we're just going to spam Wrap. Outrage with a critical hit does massive damage, but a non-crit doesn't do that much. So Leftovers seems to be the solution to Lance. So that was ridiculous. That was stupid. We had to get to level 100. We had to max out stat experience. We had to trade in held items from other versions of the game. Granted, if I had just had Leftovers the entire time, I probably would have done much better in this challenge. But man, oh man, consider that I was speeding up most of the time there and it still took 5.5 hours to get that done. That is ridiculous. And again, we went Rare Candies at the end because it was just ridiculous. Again, infinite Rare Candies are actually pretty easy. You can just use the Missing No glitch in Gen 1 to get them, and then transfer them via the color case to a Gen 2 cartridge in Pokemon Stadium 2. It's very easy to do, so infinite Rare Candies isn't actually a ridiculous assumption, even at the time that these games were out. Even without a Game Shark, there were plenty of ways to get that to go without really doing anything that people didn't know about at the time. So I feel okay about that. I don't really like it, but hey, we got through this. So yeah. I'm going to take a break from this. I think I'm going to release this as a video, and then perhaps at a later date, I will release the second half of Kanto, where Rap Dragon is going to be definitely feeling some pain. But for today, this is where I'm cutting this off. I will see you in the next one. Later.